Greetings, everybody! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back once more into the world of Golarion to learn about a nation that's dead? I'm, of course, your host here, Captain Dracovin, your illustrious emperor here at the Empire. Here to lead you through information, teach you, make sure you know everything you need to know about today's topic, Yamasa. We'll be diving in, learning all about it. Before I open up a portal, you're going to have to remember to give me a little bit of a tip, a little bit of a thing to help me out here. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. Do the little things, ring the bell, liking, and of course, let me know in the comments, what do you think about Yamasa? Its legacy, its history, and what's left there. Because we have talked about in another video, it's the Sodden Lands. This is one of the nations that became the Sodden Lands. Anyway, if you're ready to go, the portal is open. We're going to go over to Golarion, learn all about this place, but as we're in the Sodden Lands, stay close. The entire, storm, rain, murderous beings. Probably not a good thing to wander off too far. Let's go. We've arrived in what used to be Yamasa. Now, there are some sources that I used that I recommend if you want to deep dive a little bit on yourself in this case that can help you out along your journey. They're a mixed bag what kind of information is given about it. Because the fact is they are between a number of editions, and we don't have a very good picture beyond one of these books here. Lost Kingdoms is the last time we had a pretty decent look at Yamasa, but the other two books that are on top there from first edition, Campaign Settings and Inner Sea World Guide, kind of do. They deal more with the Sodden Lands as a whole and the current state of them, because that does link to Yamasa, but you really have to look to Lost Kingdoms and a bit to the Mwangi Expanse book from second edition to get an idea about what's going on. But the Mwangi Expanse book also came out before the remaster project, but I don't think there's going to be that many changes in this now. Probably not. Most of that's not really edited. Anyway, shall we begin? Shall we learn about Yamasa? Alright. What is this here? What is this image I'm showing? This is a gauze mask. This is going to be important to the legacy of Yamasa. But it represents that legacy in so many ways. That's why I'm showing it here. To begin with, Yamasa is dead. It's a destroyed kingdom. It's gone. Annihilated by the Eye of Abendego. The bringing of the Eye, the creation of it, destroyed the nation. It was an agricultural nation in Western Garund. It was actually founded in 3257. And the people that founded it were farmers. Farmers that broke away from the other nation that was destroyed by the Eye, Lirgin. We'll discuss it when we discuss their history, their backstory. But it's important to know they are an agricultural people. Kotukang was the capital, and of course the rulers was the Koboto caste. They were a caste-based society. That's also going to be important when we discuss them. Though again, they aren't anymore. We'll discuss all these things. What is Yamasa's history? Now, you can see where this was. And Yamasa's territory, that was Lirgin. That's the easiest way to say it. And I can go over Lirgin's history, but I don't remember if I've done a Lirgin video. If not, I'll probably do a Lirgin video in the future. It's one of those things that's, did I do a Lirgin video? I don't think I did. But regardless, I want to kind of approach this as its own location, because it really is. And yes, you can go check out my Sodden Lands video to kind of learn about that in and of itself. I did do a Lirgin video. I'm going to have to do a Lirgin video. Anyway, it all comes down to Yamasa. And of course, tension. Tension in Yamasa. There were issues arising throughout the nation. And it was about a century after Yamasa had been formed. I'm sorry, the seven centuries after it had been formed. 700 years after Lirgin had been formed, that's when everything came to head within Lirgin and the foundation of Yamasa occurred. A bunch of laboring underclassmen who originated mainly from the southern regions there, which was the breadbasket of the region. Just to know that was an agricultural region in the nation. Basically, were done with how they were being treated. They picked up their tools and put them down. the tools in their hands, put them down, picked up arms, marched forth to the capital of Lirgin as a revolutionary army. This civil war, referred to much later now as the Yamasan Uprising, lasted less than a year. With the rulers of Lirgin basically in conflict with each other, trying to consult the stars for advice on what to do. Yeah, they couldn't figure out how to handle this. So the end, the rebels won. The rebels didn't necessarily want to overthrow all of Lirgin. They wanted to establish themselves as their own nation and succeed. And they did. So everything south of the Frogmarth River became Yamasa. New nation was formed. Here's the interesting aspect of this. A nation born of revolution, yet the two nations could not live without each other. They were independent, but they relied on each other heavily. Lirgin still needed the food Yamasa grow. Rice, other foods, and of course Yamasans, things like lumber, stone, valuable resources, weren't as prevalent in their regions. They needed to import that, especially from Lirgin's wild regions. So, basically, they learned to cooperate. They were forced to contend with their own ways, but still keep a connection to each other. And this somehow worked. I think that's the kind of impressive about this entire thing, is they somehow made this entire thing work. As much as they were nations born out of revolution, well, one was, and the other, the nation that was revolted from, they had to make it work. So, they did have about over 1,000 years of prosperity in this situation. And here's where Yamasans developed their castes. The sheer fact is, Yamasans focused their efforts on tangible matters, farming and trade. Agriculture, their primary trade. Their exports of floors flew mostly to Lirgin, but a lot of other exports went to the Mwangi tribes nearby in the Expanse that were peaceful and wanted to trade with them. Places like the Shackles, Sargava, wanted to trade with them. They basically adopted practices and developed things around these lawns. They cultivated corn, cotton, rice, soybeans, tubers, staple crops, fruits, rare spices. Merchants and traders from Yamasa basically controlled the sales of these goods through ports on their shore and especially designated trade routes inland. The ruling class, who we mentioned the name of course, Koboto, controlled all of this. They oversaw the trading arrangements and frequently had diplomatic meetings with, like, the South Brethren of Lirgin and other various nations in their joint efforts. The laborers and farmers were, of course, the Dobuku, the working caste, who had their lives, and they were protected by the military caste, the Ebonai, and of course there was also the priest judges, the Umanai, who arbitrated conflicts. Their cities were simple, sprawling, buildings of stone, lumber, other resources they had managed to trade with Lirgin. They're vertically oriented, strikingly different from Lirginai architecture. In contrast to the vertically oriented Lirgin architecture, they concentrated in utility over aesthetics. And they had new technologies to deal with their wetland environment. New drainage ditches, aqueducts, complex systems of interconnected cisterns and reservoirs. They spread out into communities with large farms and plantations. They would have bamboo suspension bridges that allowed traffic to not impact croplands. And these interwoven plantation huts sometimes grew as large as castles or villages, housing thousands at times. They developed a very agricultural heavy civilization. But again, they were a caste-based system. And then it all ended. The Eye. The Grand Hurricane marked with Aradin's death in 4606. The Eye of Abendego formed. Neither Lirgin nor Yamasa, neither nation, was ready for the cataclysm that would come. Yamasans were devastated. 90% of their population perished in the immediate aftermath of the Eye, from disease, starvation, destruction. Many survivors fled the regions. Some didn't. But Yamasa was gone, destroyed. And with it, the Sodden Lands returned. The only thing left. Now, there is still something of Yamasa in the Sodden Lands. And before we move on to their more positive aspects of their legacy, I think when we talk about the Sodden Lands, we can talk about their more negative aspect. The Koboto. The ruling caste of Yamasa survives to this day. Not for good reasons. The gauze mask. They broke tradition. Cannibalism, necromancy, dark magic, horrific things. You name it, they dove into it. All to survive. Kokutai, the capital, still stands alongside the Crab River. It's reduced to little more than underground flooded caves, with a few buildings on the surface. The Koboto gather from the nearby region seasonally to meet and discuss things and maybe dive deeper into the darkness. After all, they still are the rulers, undisputed at this point in time, of Yamasa. A dead land in many ways. A wild land. As much as it has a pretty dark legacy to Yamasa, it's probably not the one that we should focus on. Because the Koboto were the ruling caste. They were negotiators, traders, conducting trade and diplomacy with many other nations. But they weren't the people. They weren't what made up Yamasa. What made up Yamasa? Agriculture. And a main group of them that survived still do that to this day. Matangi. Matangi have taken in a large sect of Yamasan people. Matangi orcs. Driven from their homeland, no way to discover, surviving pitifully. The Matangi basically took many of them in. Another of them actually do reside in Absalom, too. They found ways out of that entire region and traveled to Absalom. So these two groups are what remain of the Yamasas. Of course, those in Absalom can't really dive into what made them Yamasans. But those in Matangi, they're masters of agriculture. They've brought their knowledge with them and are sharing it with the Matangi, helping them grow into a new nation in the waves. Granted, the Matangi are far from being a true nation yet within the expanse. But as time goes, they may rise to it, all with the help of the Yamasans. If it not for them, they may not. The Yamasan people are ingenious. They're masters of agriculture. They know what they've learned. They have it. They can grow and farm in small, heavily urbanized neighborhoods in Absalom. They actually can. As much as they've lost much of it, they still have farm plots that they can find in Absalom, using buildings and vicinity material that they can build. But also, we've seen that the culture of Yamasan, though the essence of it remains, a lot of it's lost. The caste system is dead. Good reason to have that, too. Probably rumors and word of their old leaders, the Koboto, probably meets their ears. I'm not going to deny it. I'm sure plenty of rumors have. They want to rebuild that. So those are those that of higher station used to not want to participate in agriculture. And I don't think all Koboto went all, evil. I'm sure some of them went with the rest of the castes in Yamasa. But basically nowadays, with generations removed and everything destroyed, everybody helps out. No matter who you are, where you were, what your station is. You have to be ready to help with the farm when it's needed. But you need to help with spiritual duties. Negotiate something. Perhaps even pick up the spear. You're ready to do that. But you're also ready to get your hands dirty. to get down in the dirt to support. Yamasans who survive now are family. Adversatory drove them away, destroyed their homeland. But the impracticality of their old customs, gone. What's important? Them, the land, what they can grow, and safety are now what matters. That's the strength of Yamasa. Yamasa isn't dead. It's just a people without a nation, in many ways. We have groups of them, large groups of them, in a couple of places, but they are refugees in many ways. Their land gone. As long as the Eye remains, they will never be able to reclaim their ancestral homeland. Not only that, but, the dark magics, horrible cannibalism and stuff going on over there is, best to stay out of that. But, again, if the Eye ended, they could retake their homeland. I don't know if they would want to, though. I'm sure as generations continue, as there are now, the Yamasans, their various places, will learn to live there, to adapt. Those in Absalom will continue to bring greenery and life and farming to a city. They have the techniques, they have the knowledge. They were able to adapt great things. And though, of course, those with the Matangi will become deeper parts of the Matangi. We see the respect, in many ways, the Matangi have for them. They are incredibly important. And we've seen the way that the Matangi treat plenty of people. The fact is that we may never see a true rise of Yamasa again. But I think that what made Yamasans will remain. That essence of Yamasa, the down-to-earth, those that worked the soils, the lands, the marshlands, grew the great foods, the great crops that made that nation survive on its own for over 1,000 years. That will remain. That's Yamasa. But I hope you enjoyed diving into them today. Yamasas were a fun one to talk about, but if you want to see more things I do, you can always join me, of course, at any time over on YouTube. Hey, YouTube's the best place to it. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure you do those things, make sure you comment. Let me know what you think about it. But you can always join me live. Live, I record this videos. I do live plays. Fall of Avenswell. I have my tabletop discussion show. Does some news. Special Tabletop, Saturday the 6th. But I also do some gaming, chatting, other kinds of streams. So you can just hang out over on Twitch. Any kind of updates on schedules, uploads on YouTube, it's in my social media. Discord's the best of them all, but you can check out any of them. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. Until next time, we dive into Golarion or some other role-playing related world. I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful